Now the Toyota RAV4 has been around for a while now. It's starting to get a little outdated, maybe a little bland because you see one in every single street corner. However, this one right here, this is the 2024 TRD Offroad for the RAV4. This is the one you want. I also love that it now comes in this army green color in addition to the chiselness that we have going on here. It looks very militaristic. Falcon Wild Peak all-terrain tires, 18-inch wheels. This is by far the coolest RAV4 so far. It's also the top of the line in the lineup at around $41,000. So what we're gonna do in this video is have a look at this new RAV4 and see what's going on in the front, the side, the rear, the interior, and then we're gonna skittle around here. There's a huge puddle over there that I wanna drive into, so we're gonna see how it handles off-road as well. The 2024 Toyota RAV4 TRD Offroad is powered by a 2.5-liter inline 4, putting out 203 horsepower, 184 pound-feet of torque. Feels a little underpowered at some times. 8-speed automatic, all-wheel drive of course. 0 to 60 is done in 8.2 seconds. Fuel economy comes in at 25 city, 32 highway, and the price for this, sitting at the top of the line, is about $41,925. Alright, so starting with the front end design of this 2024 Toyota RAV4. This is of course a very familiar front face. You see them all around, but you rarely see a TRD Offroad. So what makes the TRD Offroad special? Well, all the way down here, we do have a front skid plate down here, which is great. That's what I want to see in pretty much every single crossover, to have more of these off-road features. We also have full LED headlights with this beautiful daytime lights right here. Indicator light is still just an Edison light bulb in there, which is totally fine for this price range. And overall, the chiseledness and the beautiful chamfers that we have going on here creates for a very distinct front fascia. It's also very Toyota, a little bit over-stylized, but somehow they always seems to make it work. Now, looking all the way down here, we do have some black plastic here, which is totally fine because it's supposed to go off-road. You don't want to mess up the paint. We have the front-mounted parking sensors here as well. Big Toyota logo in the middle. Fog lights are thankfully LED. Great. We have some intakes here as well. And the entire front end, the grille here, this section, and the lower section right here, everything is functional. Overall, it's a design that we're getting used to, but I still think it works in 2024. Now, looking at the overall proportions of the RAV4, it's the same old proportions that we've seen so many times before. I think it still works with these proportions. Toyota adding a lot of chiselness here. Just have a look at the shoulder line here, cutting right through both of the doors and then fading in here, but comes back in the lower section and creating this beautiful chamfer going around the greenhouse. I'm not sure why Toyota decided on the TRD Offroad to add some chrome on top of the greenhouse here. I definitely want to have this be black like the rest of the trim right here, and also the side mirrors indicator there as well. One detail that I would like to change here, redesign for this specific vehicle, is these plastic pieces right here. I want to have them continue into this piece so it has a connection here and not have this body color section cutting those off, so turning these into some small islands. Now, the coolest part about the TRD Offroad, in my opinion, is going to be the wheel and tire setup, because even if you have a standard RAV4, if you just smash some off-road wheels and tires on there, it's just going to completely transform the look and the vibe of the car. And this comes with that from factory, this Falcon Wild Peak tires, 225s all around, 18-inch specific TRD design alloy wheels, which I think look is great. I don't mind them being black, because every time we have an off-road type vehicle, it doesn't really matter that the wheels are black. I kind of think it suits it. But these are not super aggressive tires, but they're definitely more aggressive than the normal ones you get on the non-TRD off-road RAV4s. Now, the suspension back there has also been tweaked by TRD to make it more usable for off-road, which is great. It feels like Toyota really went into a lot of effort into making this a very specific RAV4. You can see the red springs in here, specific for the TRD Offroad. So overall, with the front skid plate, you have about 8.6 inches of ground clearance, which is not great, but it's also not too bad. In addition to these off-road wheels and tire setup, it's a great little off-road SUV. Now checking out the rear end of the 2024 Toyota RAV4 TRD Offroad. The chiselness that we have all around the car definitely comes back here as well. That's just how Toyota does it. You have the LED lights here, still the Edison light bulb for the indicator right there. Love that the RAV4 here and the TRD Offroad is all blacked out. Again, doesn't make sense to have this little chrome trim piece up top on the greenhouse. I still want to have that be black. I would probably just wrap it black or something, because it's essentially the only chrome feature on the car except for the logos. Open this up. We do have, by the way, the rear mounted camera located right here. And if we open this up, it is power assisted, as you can see. We have the TRD floor mats inside and also the matte TRD back here, which is in this sturdy rubber finish. Underneath here, there's really not a lot to see except for a big spare tire. Doesn't look to be a full-size spare tire. It's just an emergency tire. You also have some outlets here. 12-volt house outlet and a 12-volt cigarette outlet on that side, and that's pretty much it for the trunk back here. And then close it up by pushing that button. I also like that we have dual exhaust pipes. They look like bazooka tailpipes, but if you come closer here, you see that there is a tiny little pipe inside of a pipe. So it's a sort of inception there when it comes to the exhaust pipes. You have a small pipes inside of the big chrome pipes, but doesn't matter, it still looks very cool. Now looking at the taillight design here, I do like how it looks because we have the full LED for the daytime run light. It gets a little bit thicker in this area, creating this dynamic feeling that I'm looking for in pretty much every single headlight, daytime run light, and the taillight of cars today. And this one has it, even though it does have this more industrial feel with a lot of chamfers. You also have a chamfer here, chamfer down here at the bottom, a lot of chamfers going on here. And this is already dirty. I was trying to get it into this trail without getting too dirty, but I had too much fun just racing around on these trail out here. So unfortunately it got a little dirty, but you know what? I think it actually suits the TRD Offroad to have some dust on it like this. Now let's jump in and have a look at the interior of the TRD Offroad RAV4. The first thing you notice are these seats. They look like proper sports seats, super bolstered. You have the TRD up here in the headrest, TRD floor mats as we talked about earlier. And this is a very familiar place if you're going in here. The infotainment screen is just over 10 inches tall and wide. And the thing I don't really like about this infotainment screen is just the overall integration, because this feels like it doesn't fit the overall design. It also sticks up above the hood, which is something I never want to see of an integration of a infotainment screen like this. You can of course lift up your seat, but that's not going to be your optimal driving position. So I want to bring this lower down a little bit. You do have wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, which works really well. The resolution when you have it in those settings are great. You have the native navigation here as well, in addition to all these typical Toyota settings. If you've been in any Toyota recently, you're definitely going to recognize all the things that you can check out here. Navigation within the software itself. If you want to switch on and off all the safety features, you do that inside of the gauge cluster. I really like this piece of the interior because this is soft touch material. It's also soft touch all the way up here, which is unusual. I did not expect this top piece to be soft touch for a RAV4, but we do have that. We also have a lot of this more industrial feel for the overall styling that we have on the exterior, then coming back in here as well with the silver trim here, red stitching going all across. You also have the red stitching right here on the seats. You have some sort of storage compartment here, a shelf to put your phone for the passenger. We have glove box underneath there looking nice. These vents look fantastic as well. Very easy to figure out how they work. Nothing complicated at all, and they blow really well. The AC is ice cold. You have this control panel. One of my favorite features of RAV4s is that we have this big sturdy knob with the rubberized texture outside of it for the temperature controls. And this is what I want to see. Just see how far they stick out from the dash. There's no problems at all. If you're driving on the highway going 75 miles an hour and you want to just adjust the temp, very easy to find out where this piece is. And the thing about this is the TRD Offroad is you get both heated and ventilated seats in a RAV4. It's getting very fancy now for the RAV4. And the thing about these seats are, even the ventilation, usually in the cars I test, they don't really work that well. But in this case, I can actually feel the seat cooling down, and it's very efficient in that way. Traction control on and off, the button for that is right here. Fan speed and all of these AC settings, all physical buttons, beautiful. Further down, you do have this red background for the wireless charging pad, a 12-volt cigarette outlet, a USB regular outlet there as well. I do like the red axis that we have going on here in the interior. Gear selector, typical Toyota gear selector. Putting it into reverse is going to bring up the reverse camera, which has a decent resolution. The good news here is that it actually takes up the entire screen, and you can have the trajectory lines here in a couple of different versions of it. You can also have a wider screen, like a fisheye lens, if you want to have that, but you don't get a front-mounted camera on the TRD Offroad. That's something that you might want to have if you plan on taking this on some rugged trails. It could be a good idea. Putting it back into park, you also have a sport mode here. If you want to shift manually, you just go into drive, put it over to the left, and this is how you shift manual. So back into park, parking brake right here. These are the drive modes here. So you have eco, normal, sport, and snow. Then you have this dial in the middle. So you push this dial and then you go to mud and sand, or you can have rock and dirt. And those two drive modes are for when you go on trails specifically, because it distributes the power to the wheels differently than these other drive modes that we have. Further back, you do have two cup holders here with the red accents coming back. You also have a beautiful armrest here, not the softest armrest. I wish this had a little bit more padding. You can open this up and you have two USB-Cs here. So you have your USBs covered. You have two USB-Cs here, one USB regular right here at the wireless charging pad. The storage is not too big, but it's pretty standard for this type of vehicle. Now, as we talked about the seats, I think these are beautiful looking seats because we have some pattern in the middle here. We have the holes for the ventilation as well, the red stitching, proper bolstering here on the side, and they went the extra mile here to put in the TRD stitching in the headrests, making these specific for this trim level. Well done, Toyota. It just looks great. Now, looking at the steering wheel here, so this is where you can configure the center gauge cluster, which is digital. The tachometer is analog, but the speedometer in the middle is completely digital. And this is where you do all the customizations that you want for the screen. You turn on and off all the safety systems that you want to have on or off. You can go in and have the navigation in the middle if you want to do that, where you can see the tire pressure, you can see the mileage, the trip meter, you can see the all-wheel drive system, how much power it's sending to each wheel. So this is a pretty cool system. I kind of like this integration. It's not the most beautiful gauge cluster I've ever seen, because I think the analog gauges on the sides kind of clashes with the digital one in the middle, but at least we still have the soft touch material up top and a housing for it right here. Now, the steering wheel here on the right side, you do have the controls for the cruise control settings. You also have the controls for customizing the gauge cluster right here on the left side, the voice command as well, in addition to the volume controls. Pretty standard stocks here on the side. You have the window washers right there, and you have the indicators on the left side. Down here to the left of the steering wheel, you do have a heated steering wheel button and automatic on and off for the high beams, in addition to a small little shelf like we have here, comes back here on the side as well. The doors look pretty cool as well. You have the same industrial feel like we have in the entire rest of this interior, with the silver trim coming back here, and some cup holders and storage all the way down at the bottom of the door. So with that said, let's jump into the back seat, because I don't think I've sat in the RAV4 in the back seat behind my own driving position, being 6'1". So let's see if I can fit back there. Jumping into the back seat here, let's check this out. First of all, I love the floor mats, because these are some sturdy, rugged, rubberized floor mats with the TRD Offroad stamped onto them. You have two USBs down here. When it comes to leg space, this is surprisingly roomy for the overall proportions, and I also have plenty of headroom. So being 6'1", no problem at all fitting back here behind my own driving position. And of course, we do have a full standard size sunroof up front as well. Folding down the center armrest, you do find two cup holders here. So we have everything we need in the front and in the back. I think the overall design, both interior and exterior, looks pretty cool, even though it's starting to get a little bit dated. But for what you're paying and for what you get with the TRD Offroad, I do think this is still a pretty good value. So what is it like to drive the 2024 Toyota RAV4 TRD Offroad? It's very comfortable. These tires, the Falcon Wild Peaks, are definitely on the smoother side. I like that we have a lot of rubber to, you know, dampen the overall ride. And then we have a puddle, can go in here. I have it in normal now. So no off-road settings specifically set for this car. And it's a very fun car. It's a capable car for what it is. It's just a RAV4, but I think TRD just put the right amount of effort into this car and making it special. However, the torque number, 184 pound-feet of torque, feels sometimes a little underpowered. You have 203 horsepower from a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated inline 4, 0 to 60 in about 8.2 seconds, which is fine. I don't care about the 0 to 60 numbers really in a car like this. It's kind of refreshing to have a SUV that doesn't do 0 to 60 in like 4 seconds. Just a normal regular SUV that has been beefed up a little bit to be able to do stuff like this in a bit more comfort with the TRD suspension that we have. I mean, it's a little rally car, this thing. It's a pretty fun car to drive on trails like these. And I'm glad that Toyota decided to, yes, still the torque just does, you can't feel, you can feel that it's lacking a little bit of torque with 184 pound-feet there, but it's fine. You just have to rev it out a little bit. At least the good news here is that we don't have a CVT gearbox. Thankfully, this comes with an 8-speed automatic. If it was a CVT, it would be a completely different story. But I'm glad Toyota decided to go with the army green color for the RAV4. I think it suits it very well, because if you look at the exterior styling, sort of feels like it has more of an militaristic style to it. So this army green that we had on the 4Runner as well previously, and we still have it, I think, they just added it to the RAV4, definitely suits this car. All right, so we're coming into a little bit more of a rugged terrain here. So let's put it into, let's see what we have here. Mud, sand, or rock dirt? Rock dirt probably sounds good. And now we can see the torque or the power numbers, how it distributed across the 4 wheels with this little graph that we have in the center of the gauge cluster. And the cool thing now is that if one tire lifts off the surface, it's gonna sense that, and it's gonna send the power to the wheel that actually has the traction. So it works very well, and TRD has done a fantastic job with this little car. Just adding the Wild Peak tires, in my opinion, the wheels and tire setup here just transforms the RAV4 in such a cool way. Now going over these bumps here in the road, super comfortable. Suspension just soaks everything up, and I don't feel, you know, uncomfortable at all, even though it's pretty rough, but definitely not breaking my neck right now. Now the RAV4 has been around for a while now, and honestly, I think sometimes it feels like manufacturers maybe update their cars too often, if that makes sense. Sometimes the cars are just so good that they don't necessarily need updating every 3, 4, or 5 years. Some cars just are able to last a decade or more. I mean, the GTR, for example, when did that came out? In 2008 or 2007 even, and it's still in production today because it's such a great car and people still love it, even though the technology is getting a little outdated. But I'm talking about the design here. The design of this RAV4, I still think it feels 2024, 2025 to me. If we just maybe updated the indicators and made those LED, that would be cool to just bring it into 2025. But that's pretty much everything that's needed for this vehicle, or for this overall design. The interior design, the only thing I don't really like about it is this infotainment screen, because as I said, it just sticks up above the hood, and that's a no-go for me. It needs to sit way lower than that. And it also doesn't feel like it's well integrated. And that has to do with the age of the car. I mean, it's been around for a while, as I said. So if you're gonna keep updating the screen, originally this interior was not designed to have a 10-inch plus screen in the interior. So these are the problems that we're stuck with when that happens. So how do we sum up the 2024 Toyota RAV4 TRD Offroad? As I said, I think it's a very capable little off-road SUV, and it looks good still, even if it's an old design by now. I personally would, if I was buying a RAV4 today, this is 100% the trim level I would go for, even though it is the most expensive one. It's also to me, it just feels right to have an SUV with this type of package. Just should have these type of accessories on it, specifically when it comes to the wheel and tire setup like we have here. Even though it is the most expensive trim level here at around just over $41,000, I still, personally, with the wireless Apple CarPlay, the new infotainment screen, integration is not the best, but the functionality works fine. I still think it's a great car in 2024 and moving into 2025.